On the program today, there's so much bad news out there that we're really excited today to bring you not one, but two good news stories, stories of success. We're going to start out with a congratulations to the WKU Gatton Academy for Math and Science for being named by Newsweek magazine as mind you, the best high school in America in its annual ranking of the top 25 high schools in the country. We're going to talk with the Gatton Academy's executive director and find out how that distinction benefits us all. And later in the program, we're going to get the very latest on autism. As the quest to better understand the dimensions of that disorder continue to confound many of us, we're going to talk with the executive director of the Kelly Autism Program at WKU, who's just returned from an international conference in Canada, and we're going to find out the latest about that. And along with that, we're going to meet a unique young man and his mom and hear their poignant story of the grateful story, actually, of a young man who has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome and who, after many, many years, has finally found his place. That's coming up next on Outlook. Hello and welcome to Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb, and I'm grinning because it's a happy news day. It's a happy, good day because we're going to bring you the story of how WKU's Gatton Academy of Math and Science has received a very, very important designation. It's the designation as the top high school in the country by Newsweek magazine. And joining us today is the executive director of the Gatton Academy, Dr. Julia Roberts. Julia, thank you so much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Well, when she walked in, I was teasing her. I said, because the glow surrounds you, because this is an exciting, you've worked so hard. But help people who may not be familiar with the Gatton Academy, help them understand what that is and why Western is affiliated with a high school and what that's all about.
The Gatton Academy of Mathematics and Science in Kentucky is located at WKU. It is Kentucky's residential school for high school juniors and seniors who have a career interest in science, technology, engineering, and math, and are advanced learners. So they come here for their junior and senior year of high school, and instead of taking high school classes, they take all college classes and graduate from high school with a minimum of 60 hours of college credit.
Now, as we talk for the next little bit, you're going to hear us reference something called STEM. It's a STEM initiative, and what we're talking about is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And for years, we've heard reports how we had a deficiency in those areas, and especially gender deficiencies, where we weren't getting enough young women, perhaps, entering the fields of math and science. Do you see that changing?
Well, of course, the Gatton Academy has the same number of beds for girls as for boys, and so it is gender neutral.
Good.
For us, and we consider that to be very important. The young people pursue all kinds of interests. They even kind of specialize because all of them take quite a bit of math. They take at least a course in biology, physics, chemistry, computer science, and then they have the opportunity and the requirement to take a second course in one of those areas. And remember, they're college courses. And so these young people are learning with other WKU students in regular college courses.
This is so exciting because for years, Kentucky, with its Education Reform Act several decades ago, we're always trying to improve education in Kentucky. And you almost have a spectrum where you have some students who are at the bottom trying to reach them, but then by the same token, you've got these very gifted students who in many cases face obstacles as well. A lot of people might make the assumption that, well, they're really smart, they don't have any issues. On the contrary, they can get bored in their classes, maybe not be stimulated enough. So through the Gatton Academy and other facilities like it, it's so exciting to be able to take these children. And I bet, I've got it, you've been with it since the beginning, it's got to be exciting when you put one of these kids with a like-minded child and all of a sudden they realize, I'm not alone.
And that's such an important understanding for people to have. Everyone needs to be with idea mates, not just age mates. You need to be with people who care a great deal about the things you're interested in. And the Gatton Academy gives school districts across the Commonwealth an opportunity to send their students who are ready for more to this special school. And up to this time, 107 of Kentucky's 120 counties have had a student at the Gatton Academy. It is Kentucky's school.
That's so exciting. So what are the prerequisites to attend the WKU Gatton Academy?
Well, the young people have to have ACT scores that indicate they're ready to do this kind of work, look at their grade point average, recommendations, essays, very much like a college application.
And how important is the socialization? Because they might be book smart, but maybe socially they're not as adept. How is that factored into their experience here?
That's kind of an interesting thing, and that does not mean that 100% of them are highly social, but often when you get together with others who share your interest, you're far more social than you would seem when you're the only one in your high school who has an interest in engineering or physics. And I've seen that in summer programming for years and had parents say to me, oh, I just wish that she'd be this outgoing at home. Well, you're outgoing when you have people who can talk about what you're interested in.
Well, yes, when you feel accepted.
That's right.
That you're not alone. Now, this designation is very exciting. It's Newsweek magazine's top high school in the country. In the past, the Gatton Academy has ranked in the top 5, but this is the big one. This is #1. So you've been in business how long?
We have just had our 5th graduation, so our academy has been in operational status for 5 years.
So that's got to be so exciting. At the beginning of the program, I specifically chose my words and I said, we're going to talk about how this designation benefits us all. Address that, if you will, because people might be watching this and say, so what does that mean for me? But it does have a bigger picture.
I hope that this focuses Kentucky on academic excellence. It says that Kentucky young people can do anything if given the opportunity. And I think it is so important that all children are learning what they're ready to learn, and that we are not just looking at proficiency or grade level learning. We've done a little bit too much of that, and it's time to remove the learning ceiling and use the students at the Gatton Academy as a good example of how Kentuckians can soar.
So with this designation as Newsweek's top high school in the country, now what? They notified you on, over the weekend that it was a reality, and so now what happens?
Well, I think it's celebration.
Celebration.
And trying to get the word out. In all honesty, being a statewide school, it is a huge challenge to get the word out so that young people and parents all across the Commonwealth know of it as an opportunity. And I say so often, an opportunity is not an opportunity until you know about it. And so we need the help of people from all corners of our state to know, so that when they see a young person who really goes beyond what the high school can offer in terms of their needs, they tell them about it.
And with you at the helm, I have no doubt it will continue to be successful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Julia Roberts, the Executive Director of the Gatton Academy of Math and Science at WKU, that has received the designation as Newsweek's magazine's top high school in the country. Congratulations. Stay with us on Outlook, because when we come back, we're going to be talking about autism, and we're going to hear a very poignant story of a young man who kind of fell through the cracks until around the age of 8, when suddenly he got the diagnosis. We'll hear the rest of that story when Outlook continues. Stay with us. Outlook continues. I'm Barbara Deeb. You know, we said today was going to be a show of happy. It's going to be happy stories. Earlier in the segment, we learned about the WKU Gatton Academy of Math and Science getting the designation by Newsweek magazine as the top high school in the country. Well, right now we have another good news story. It's called the Kelly Autism Program at WKU. We're going to be talking about autism awareness as we welcome to the program the Executive Director of the Kelly Autism Program, Marty Bowman. And she has just returned from an international conference on autism research. She's going to share that information with us. Thanks for being here, Marty.
Thank you.
In addition, we have a really unique story to share with you. This is the story of Zach Pennington, who you're going to meet, and his mom, Beth. And Zach and Beth have a story to tell about just, working through the system and learning finally at an adult age almost that you had Asperger's syndrome, Zach, and then came to WKU and how your life was transformed. So welcome with me, if you will, Zach Pennington and his mom, Beth. Now, before we get started, I want to read a little letter because Marty was gracious enough to share this, and we asked the permission of Beth to read this letter. This is a letter that Beth Pennington wrote to Marty Bowman after her son had been at the Kelly Autism Program for a while. And basically, she's thanking the staff for just what an amazing experience that it had been for her son. But she says, we were very concerned when we dropped Zach off for school last August. It wasn't because about doubts about the program, but because we had seen how difficult the world within the walls of high school had been for Zach. As the semester unfolded, we could tell things were different, things were going well. And she best summarizes it in this anecdote. When asking Zach what he wanted for Christmas, she said, well, what would you like for Christmas? One of his responses was, you know what? I'm happy and thankful to be at WKU. He said that he knew it was costly for us to send him to school and that what he really wanted most was to be able to continue that education. Needless to say, we found a few gifts to put under the tree, but the best Christmas gift we received this year was that statement and the knowledge that Zach was doing so well at WKU. Now, I might tell you that at one point, Zach was taken out of the public schools. You homeschooled him, Beth. He right now has a 4.0 in physics. Congratulations. Share that story with us, Beth. You have 3 children. You have 2 other children. But when did you realize that something was different about Zach?
Well, what I first thought that was different was the fact that he loved everything I gave him when I began to homeschool him in 3rd grade. My other children had the same opportunity, but they weren't as taken with learning and reading every book that I could give them. And I used to call him a homeschooler's dream. But he wanted to go to high school, so we put him in the public high school. And we kind of noticed after the first year or two that, the socialization was very difficult for him. And then it began to actually get in the way of his learning because we didn't know a lot about it because he wouldn't tell us, but we knew something wasn't right, and we knew that he was probably being bullied, and he just was different. He wanted to talk about physics and math, and most high school kids want to talk about, which party and the football game and things like that. And so, we didn't realize what it was doing to him until he got to his junior year, and we started seeing that we knew he was brilliant, but his grades weren't showing that, and he wasn't always doing his homework, and he started showing a lack of interest in going to school at all. And so as this stuff became more prevalent, I decided that I needed to go and ask somebody some questions. And then during the summer before senior year, it was suggested that he might have Asperger's. So we went through the testing process, which actually took a couple of months. So we found out about the time he turned 18 that this was why he was very unique.
Very unique. Marty, I want to talk about that because there's this umbrella. It's the Autism Umbrella. They call it a spectrum. And I'm a novice. I don't know a lot, but I know if you tune into any kind of media, we hear a lot about autism, but there's so much we don't know about autism. You've just returned from an international conference where this was being discussed, and the way in which educators and physicians and clinicians are going to be looking at autism is going to be changing. Help us understand. First of all, give us a working definition. What are we talking about?
What I'd say is that their brain is wired a little different than the rest of us, and it's a simple way to look at it. And these people are capable of doing many great things, and we just have to tap into their special interest. And that's what we've seen exactly happening with Zach. He loves physics, and he thrives on physics and could talk about physics all day. With the new DSM-4, or DSM-5 that they're going to be changing to, they're making some major changes. Before we had 4 or 5 disorders that were included under that umbrella. Now they want to unify all of those into one category, autism spectrum disorders. So the disorders such as autism, Asperger's, PDD, NOS, pervasive developmental disorders not otherwise specified, childhood disintegrative disorder, and Rett syndrome will all become one underneath this umbrella. this is huge, and we're hearing a lot from the parents.
Feedback.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the powers that be are changing, and
Yes.
the justification for this change?
So because there is such a lap over between the two of them, for instance, between Asperger's and autism, high functioning autism, they are very close related. And where's that fine line? And that's also true with the PDD and OS, that we see that overlapping. So it is very difficult to be clear when does one start, when does not. The Tourette's definitely will come out of the photo right now because of the fact that we have found out that it is a medical diagnosis is necessary.
When you talk about the
that.
Tourette's, are we talking about Tourette syndrome?
No,
What are the
Tourette's.
Tourette's? What are we talking about?
R-E-T-T. What it is primarily in females is where we see it, and usually it's a degenerative disorder. Females that do not talk and start losing some of their functions. And we also have the child disintegrative disorder, which we find primarily in the males, and that's consistent almost with the Tourette's, that we see that decreasing in abilities.
Well, so then would autism be considered a neurological disorder when you say they're wired differently?
Yes.
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 So maybe it's us, the people in general that trying to get, what is normalcy?
Yes.
Right? So we have a starting place, and then we have to work from there?
Yes, exactly. I always chuckle because a lot of our participants say, well, we're all wired different and all of us have a little piece of autism. And it's true. We all have our little quirks and everything else, and there's nothing wrong with that. That makes us all special.
Well, and Zach, you are a very special young man. So share that story with us, because you can speak to it from a very different perspective. Did you always feel like something was a little different?
Well, yeah, and I don't really think I'm as smart as you guys give me credit for. I mean, I think I'm okay. But the thing is, I always kind of knew I was a little bit weird and a little bit different. But it wasn't until I really heard about Asperger's when I started to realize that this is something that really describes me, where I will get hyper-focused on something that really interests me, and I'll spend a lot of time learning about that subject, and it'll get me really excited. But certain things don't come so as easily to me, like just social interactions. I mean, there was a time in high school where I didn't even, like my mom said, didn't even want to go to school at all, just because I felt so uncomfortable and pressured to fit in.
By your peers?
And
Or the educators as well?
Not really the educators. In fact, those are the ones that I got along with. And
Okay.
it was funny is that when I would go to school, I would spend hours talking to the professors and talking, like my physics teacher was an inspiration to me, and he's the whole reason I got interested in physics in the first place. I would spend an hour after school had ended just talking to him about physics and about just things that were going on in the science world. And all of my friends would be out, not doing school outside of school. But those kinds of things interested me. Uh-huh. And so
That's so interesting, because in the first segment we were talking about gifted students, the WKU Gatton Academy of Math and Science, and how those students are high school students who are doing college work. And here you are. So Mom, Beth, did you have a point, you homeschooled, but then did you have a point you saw where he was hyper-focused on something and he could really grasp reading and really grasp these concepts, and yet you have a degree you shared with me in special education. So maybe it didn't seem so odd. Help us understand that.
Well, I think that he was isolated from peers, so you didn't have that social interaction awkwardness going on. And I think that because he wanted so eager to learn, that I was able to give him so much material. But he did hit about a 7th grade. When he was in 7th grade, I remembered that he was taking a couple things and he didn't really like them, and he just
shut off,
wouldn't do them. And I'm like, what's going on here? And so it made sense later. Everything like that made sense, but none of it was severe or significant enough for us to think there was, a diagnosis out there to be found. You just sort of adapt, and it was like, well, it was very painful to watch him, to watch some of the way the kids would treat him or ignore him. And it was a little weird. Like, his physics teacher didn't think he had Asperger's when we finally told the teachers. They said, oh, you know, he's fine, he's easy to talk to. Well, that's because he's in your room talking to you instead of being out there with his peers. And that's the part that's not normal. And you know, and really, what is normal? We think it's normal, but it's wonderful to see him here in an environment where they are
nurturing and flourishing. Yes. That is so exciting. Marty Bowman is the executive director of the Kelly Autism Program at WKU. You've just returned from this international conference on autism. As I say, we're hearing a lot about autism. A lot more attention is being paid. And I'm also hearing critics say that we're too quick to give someone a diagnosis of autism. Is there a cut and dry diagnosis for some of these?
Not at all.
Not at all.
That's the difficult part. And I think with the new DSM-5, what we're also going to see is moving from a triad of diagnosis to a two-cycle situation. In that triad before, we used to look at communication, we used to look at social interactions, and then we'd look at behaviors. They're going to combine the communication with the social interaction piece. And my concern, and a lot of the parents that we heard at the conference, was the situation that the social interaction piece will be lost because we'll have people like Zach who will and can communicate very well. But yet that can be a struggle area for him. And we see that with a lot of our college students at WKU.
Well, and autism, as you say, it's a spectrum, and so and there's an umbrella, and there are so many variations on a theme, if you will. You know, there are those who don't like to be touched, don't like to be, you know, in certain rooms. So the diagnosis is critical, I suspect.
Exactly, and not only do we see the sensory issues that's being created, you know, that we see more and more individuals and being recognized more. And also we have the executive functioning skills. We have those that open up a whole new area that we have to work with these individuals. For instance, to get the individuals started with their work, inhibiting themselves. What I'm saying is, you know, some of these individuals will be so honest and come right up to you and say something, well, I don't like the way you look today. Or I have other students that
it's like they don't have a filter.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Which in this world would probably be a better thing, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
If more people would be honest like that. But no, this can be a
yes.
real issue for some. So the diagnosis, Temple Grandin, I've had the pleasure to interview her twice, and she's quirky at best, but you know, just a fascinating story.
Yes.
So we're learning more, and certainly, you know, people like that getting out there is drawing more attention. What would you like to see? Do you feel like you're getting the support that you need to get the word out about autism?
I have to say that here at WKU, this is just the most nurturing and supportive of our program. The faculty all the way to the student organizations, we're so embedded, and then we can also go out into the community. Our community support is just so surprising.
Amazing in that support.
I can't even say how wonderful it is.
So you're lucky, you know, we're the lucky ones, okay? But it's not that way across the country. Now, are there other facilities like the Kelly Autism Program that are out there to help others across the country?
It depends upon where you're looking. Yes, there's facilities, there's many of them throughout the nation. But I think a lot of the grant money is going to the identification, the medical component, and we don't see too many for the actual services for the individuals. We need a lot more
services.
of them.
Well, you mentioned the medical component. A lot of pharmaceuticals being used and incorporated in the treatment?
I think we're seeing more that the research is going towards is the MMRs, I'm sorry for the MIRs, going for that component, looking at the brain, what's happening within the brain for these individuals. That's a big issue right now.
That need to rewire. We're quickly running out of time. You've shared this beautiful, poignant story with us about having been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. You have a 4.0 in physics at WKU. You're being successful. What do you hope that come away with, or that someone might come away with it from this interview with?
Well, I think that if someone's out there that feels like they might have a similar issue, maybe or if your child out there has this issue like that, it wouldn't hurt to get tested and see if you might have Asperger's, because there is help out there. And if it wasn't for the Kelly Autism Program, I mean, I might not be as successful as I am today. I had dropped out of high school, actually, and I got a GED. And I thought there was a potential that my career could have been working in a restaurant for the rest of my life, which wasn't interesting to me. What I wanted to do was study physics. And the Kelly Autism Program was a place that gave me the support I needed to be as successful as I am today.
Well, continued success. And Mom, leave us with some final words of wisdom, if you will, Beth Pennington.
I think that this is a wonderful program. It is a huge blessing, and I think that given the right supports that every student can be successful, and we just feel very blessed to have found this program.
And the Kelly Autism program is one of many across the country, but in particular we've been talking about autism and the changes that are coming our way. But if someone wants to be tested or diagnosed, can they come to the Kelly Autism program?
We recommend they either go to Vanderbilt or even up to Weiskopf in Louisville.
Okay, good to know. We're going to put up a contact number at the end. Continued success, and thank you for sharing your story. We've been talking about autism, and that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb. We're always glad you joined us, and don't forget about Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, thanks for being here.